for the opportunity to come and talk to you. So obviously I'm not from the council, I'm from YMCA Victoria. But we are the largest community recreation provider in the state, and we do manage around 60 community recreation centres on behalf of around 24, 25 local council. It does tend to change every couple of months. And I'm here to tell you a little bit about our journey to zero sugar and how we've been able to achieve that. So it is within one setting, being sport and recreation, but I think a lot of the lessons that we've learnt are going to be really applicable, and hopefully you can take them away. To provide you with a bit of context, we have around 18 million visits per annum at our centres across the state. So we have centres within the city of Melbourne, for example, and we have centres out rural Collingwood line further than that as well. And we see about 58,000 kids coming through our centres each week to do some swimming lessons, and thousands more that might be doing something basketball and stadium or some gymnastics as well. So a really important touch point for kids and being able to positively influence their health. So with this in mind, we have got a really big commitment about improving health and well-being. And while we're not really known for food per se, when we actually looked at our food profile, we were quite surprised with how involved in food we actually are. So to give you a little bit of an idea, on average we have about 2.5 million food transactions per year through 87 cost centres, which includes around 50 kiosks and 13 cafes. So those 50 kiosks would include what you would see in an old outdoor 50-metre pool where you have a pie warmer and an ice cream freezer and a fridge, and then cafes which obviously have more food prep sort of facilities as well. And when we kind of delved a bit further and looked at our sales report, we actually discovered a pretty ugly truth for the YMCA. And I don't think this is uncommon for other sport rec facilities, that smell of fried foods that wafts through the centre as you walk through. But what we actually discovered was 72% of the food that we were selling in our cafes and kiosks was red. And this led us really to question about the role we were playing in terms of influencing the eating behaviours of the people who were coming into our centres, particularly kids, because it's not uncommon, or wasn't uncommon, for us to see kids who come and do a half an hour swimming lesson and walking out with a 600ml Gatorade, which is quite shocking. And if we went a bit further, we were able to tally the amount of soft drinks that we sell on average in a year, which equated to about 14 tonnes of sugar, which is pretty intense. And that's just the soft drinks, so your carbonated fizzy drinks, your iced teas, your fruit drinks disguised as fruit juice and like. But if you added our sports drinks on top of that, it's around 28 tonnes of sugar, which is pretty gross. So we recognised that we need to do something, and we needed to do something pretty fast about it. So what did we do? Our first step was around actually developing and implementing a policy, and we went about this by engaging a consultation group that helped us develop the policy. And we were fortunate enough that, again, the Victorian Government's healthy classification guidelines were available, and that's on which our policy is based. We also had a nutritionist involved, and of course we engaged our operational staff, because the biggest impact for us, or the biggest unknown, was around the financial impact, because a lot of our cafes need to generate some income for them to survive. So what was the switch to the healthier choices going to have impact on our sales? And the adoption and endorsement of the policy back in 2014 attracted quite a bit of attention from government, but also researchers that were really quite interested to build the business case around switching towards healthier choices. So we have been fortunate enough to have Professor Anna Peters and her team at Deakin actually evaluating our policy implementation from the start. So I'll share a little bit of that data around. As I mentioned, we are using the Victorian Government Healthy Food and Classification Guidelines, which has been brilliant because it's really held us to account. And we've been able to use that to kind of set really specific targets about what we want to achieve. So We are currently on the journey to 10% or less red items, and we're going completely sugary drink free by the end of 2017, which is actually this year. I need to remind myself. So as I mentioned, we were originally at 72% red. After 1 year of implementation, we managed to drop that to 52%. We're currently doing another assessment, so I'll be able to give you some updated figures around that. But the biggest contributor of those red items was actually contained within our drinks fridges. And this is quite surprising because I guess if we stood back and looked at the implementation process, changing the drinks has been the easiest thing for us to do. So smallest sort of change and tweak has produced the biggest impact in terms of reducing red items, which has been fantastic. So originally we were at about 65% of our space was dedicated to red drinks, 30 to amber, and a measly 5 was green, which was really just water. So that's why we decided to tackle sugary drinks first. And that was really simply from reducing the amount of soft drinks within our fridge. So we didn't really need to have 5 different carbonated soft drinks. We could just maybe get away with 3. And also just looking at how the drinks fridge was laid out. So those planograms about if your fridge is positioned in front of a counter, maybe you could make sure that all your red items are positioned out of the line of sight of kids, and vice versa if they're behind counter, that sort of thing. Also, I guess due to the size and scope of the Y, we decided that a campaign approach would work best with us. So I think, Rosie, you mentioned about, a campaign approach is much more palatable for people to get involved with and understand. So the first one that we actually did was around our soft drink-free summer. And this ran from October 2015 to February 2016. And the campaign was pretty simple, as it challenged our aquatic rec centres to remove all soft drinks from their fridges, and therefore reducing red drinks to just 10% of their drink fridge, and that 10% is only to be sports drinks. So we kind of did, well, I try and say it's a small change. It was pretty big for some centres, but we did manage to achieve that, and it was a really fantastic result for us. We did some social media, some health promotion and messaging out there around the amount of sugar in sugary drinks, the health risks associated with them, and the like. And again, like everyone else, with a few outliers that, calls of nanny statism and all that sort of stuff about removing their sugary drinks from them, we had a really positive result in terms of the support for the policy, with 88% of respondents that completed a Deakin survey in support of our policy, which is really great. And again, no change in drink sales. So what we did find is green drink sales increased from 34% to 49%, amber drink sales increased from 4% to 8%, and red drink sales decreased from 63% to 43%. So to put it simply again, people were just substituting. So not buying red, buying an amber or green option. And I'm with the other lady who had mentioned the question around access to free tap water. We're big on pushing that, so we make sure we have it available in all our centres. And we encourage people to bring in their refillable drink bottles, because I have nightmares about the amount of plastic we sell. So that's something that's on our radar as well, about how to encourage the use of refillable bottles. What we're currently working on at the moment is zero sugar. So as I mentioned before, the Y is committed to removing all sugar from its drinks fridges by the end of this year. We're currently running our zero sugar campaign, which is actually pulling out sports drinks from our centres. And for an organisation that does sport, this is pretty big, I guess. Some of our centres have already gone sports drink free, which is fantastic. We do have an option for centres that don't want to go cold turkey, in that there is a artificially sweetened sports drink available that's on market at the moment. This is an amber drink, so it's not really classified for kids, and we're really strongly encouraging centres not to switch that out, but actually to go completely sports drink free. So stay tuned, we should have some results about that soon, and we're happy to share those with you. So just to recap in terms of what we learnt, The power of a persuasive argument, and I think we touched on it before in the panel, there's so much collective action that's happening across the state at the moment. There's so much data available, consumption rates, the fact that we were able to use our sales reports to go to our board and say, you know, we're selling this amount of sugar through our centres, we've got this many kids coming into our centres, what sort of role we were playing in those consumption rates when we allow kids to buy these sorts of drinks within our centres. So we use that, and we use that to kind of gain some allies and get our policy through and endorsed, which was actually pretty easy. Apart from the financial one, that financial, you know, what sort of impact are we going to have, we managed to get it through, and our board's incredibly passionate and interested in this piece. We used the knowledge and resources available. Jane touched on it. HEAS is out there, the Healthy Eating Advisory Service is out there, the guidelines are there, there's so much stuff ready at your fingertips. We're happy to help in any way we can. All the panel members are available as well, so use them, and don't feel you need to create anything that's already there. A staged implementation, don't try to eat the elephant all at once. Remember, small changes for big impact. We originally started by dropping from 65% rent to 30% rent in our fridges. We did that for about 3 or 4 months, and then we reduced it again to 10%. So it doesn't need to be something that dramatically happens overnight. And finally, communicate, educate and celebrate. We made sure we made quite a bit of noise about what we were doing, and we found this was really important because it attracted a lot of attention, it made people feel good about what we're doing, and it was a really important engagement piece to get our operational teams on board. We kind of used that to encourage them to take more action and be more proactive about the changes they were making. So it was really powerful for us. And finally, there is safety in numbers. I think we've heard it a couple of times already today. Partnerships allow for collaboration, which divides a challenge and multiplies the success. So we might be taking action in any different ways in our communities, but collectively we're having a really great impact, and we're going to make some pretty significant changes to community health by tackling sugary drinks. We are fortunate that we have one drink supplier. So we met with them when our policy was endorsed and said this is the way that we're going. That drink supplier was like, yeah, that's all well and good, but you've got a contract, and that contract specifies you order this amount from us over this period of time, otherwise you need to extend your contract. And we said that's fine, our contract will be extended, we haven't got an issue with that. So we've been able to use them because they've got quite sophisticated sales networks and rollouts and ordering and all that sort of stuff. So we've been using their platforms in terms of having only approved drinks ranges available for our centres to order from, and also specific planograms that have to go into YMCA Victoria sites. So they've actually been quite good to work with, and I think a level of acceptance on their behalf that expectations are changing around sugary drinks, and if they want to be involved, they need to step up. We actually haven't had any opposition on milk drinks. We try and seek out the lowest sugar option, but as they're classified as ENDA, they are allowed within our fridges. But because, let me understand it, that Schweppes don't have a milk drink, so we actually have to use part of their fridge and stock another supplier in there, which they have fortunately been able to give us that flexibility.